Alright guys, it's time for an update on my fish room, I guess you'd call it. I've slowly been working on all the tanks and trying to beautify them just a little bit, and I finally got fish again. Although I know I had 3 golden white clouds in the 40 breeder last time I was here. But anyways, I'm just going to go through the tanks again and kind of give an update on each one of them. So in this one, this is the 10 gallon. I've definitely done some trimming. There used to be a whole bunch of moss up in this area. that stringy moss. I mean, there's still a little bit of it in here. But mostly was trying to remove it because, like I said, it kind of gets out of control, which I think part of it too is I just need to keep up with trimming it. But on this tank, I just recently, like 2 days ago, did a huge cutting or trimming on all of this stem plant right here. So it was growing pretty nice and red up here a little bit, but once I trimmed it back, it's kind of down to all that green. It should, now that it has plenty of light, should be able to get nice and bright red. You can see some red starting to come in there. But I also pulled up, there's a bunch of this Val. So there's Val scenario over here, and then there's some growing in between all the stem plant, this Ludwigi of some type. So I ripped that out. That's where all this mulm came from. And I did do a water change to try and get some of that out, but there's still a lot in there. But in terms of fish that I added, you got 7 white clouds in here now, which I'm going to try and be breeding those. You got 3 autos in here, auto cinchlus, to try and help clean this up, which you can see over here, this leaf, that one, that leaf was covered just like the rest of these leaves over here. And I saw one of them on it today, and they completely cleaned off that leaf. So eventually they should get around to the whole tank, and maybe not completely clear it out. I'll probably have to help them out with water changes, but I'm not trying to, completely drain the tank immediately. So it'll be, a few weeks to months in order to get this tank up to the condition that I want it in. But I added these cryptocorynes in, or corin, I don't know how you say it. Whatever. These Anubias Nanopetit are nice and growing out, and hopefully I'll be able to get them looking real nice to where there's not any of that yellowish color. I might not be able to do anything, I'm not entirely 100% sure, but I might not be able to do anything about the old yellow leaves. I might just have to have new green growth, and then eventually replace those out. Then you also got this massive Subwassertane right here, which definitely covered in algae and mulm right now, but eventually it'll get there. On top of the white clouds and the autos, there are also 2 coolie loaches in here, which, now knowing what I know, I kind of wanted to add shrimp in here. And I also didn't think about this, but they definitely prefer sand substrate. Which, granted, I think with all the mulm and stuff, I see them a lot, I don't know, slithering around in there. And they really like this spot in here and back up in here behind the driftwood, as well as, oh wait, there's one right there right now. He was moving. Well, you can see him with his little mouth moving around. But anyways, wrong button. Sorry about that. But yeah, so this tank is starting to get up. It'll eventually get there. It definitely looks better. I also kind of honestly like the mulmy look, because it kind of reminds me of the natural stream beds, at least that you see around here in eastern Tennessee. And then I also just today added these frog bit. Now there is a little bit of blue-green algae on there. So I am a little bit worried about that spreading. The guy who I bought it from today, he told me about it, and I was originally going to add it to another tank, so that way hopefully I get that under control before I added it to this one, but then I kind of decided I didn't care. So I'll deal with that when it comes to it. But hopefully the autos will be able to help take care of some of the algae. Maybe I can get some shrimp in here to help with that too. but also the shrimp, you know, they definitely will eat on the white cloud eggs. So on the one hand I want the shrimp, on the other hand I don't. I don't know, we'll see. I'm still kind of debating it, but that's where that tank is at. Now down to this 5 gallon right here. You can see I got this cleared out a lot too, and I kind of moved some of the crypt around. Most of this crypt was already there, like so the crypt originally was right here in front of this Anubias plant, and it had sent out runners over here. So I kind of liked that placement, but I took all these ones right here because I felt like they were getting to the top of the tank. You know, it's the same ones that was in the 10 gallon. They were getting to the top of the tank, and I didn't really like that placement for them. So I took those out, put those up in the 10 gallon, and I definitely like this arrangement of the plants a lot more. You know, it's kind of same thing. I added 5 shrimp in here just the other day. So hopefully they'll get a nice colony going in here, and that's the only thing I'm going to keep in here. So that way they can get a nice, strong, healthy population. Then I can slowly start to populate my other tanks. But that's kind of what I'm planning on doing with this, is kind of just leaving it a shrimp only tank. For now, at least. We'll see if I end up doing anything different, but you know, hopefully they'll start working on some of that algae, which also, you know, me kind of working on it myself, just pulling out the algae and helping the plants to be able to grow nice and strong to where they'll be able to outcompete the algae. And one thing that I really like is how this Anubias is kind of like growing in between the rocks to kind of, like, there is like 3 different rocks in here, as well as this driftwood to kind of hide some of the cracks in between them. So it's kind of cool seeing the Anubias like grow around it and the roots spreading on it. And also same with like this, you got some Sawassertane right there growing on the rock, and there's a little bit right there and behind the Anubias. So I just think that's really cool when plants kind of grow on the hardscape. But anyways, now on to the Maltese tank that I had. I finally got rid of all the algae, or well, most of the algae at least. And then I added all these plants, and you know, they were growing really good. You know, we did have some die off where, you know, some plants just didn't adapt to the change real well. But you know, the crypt has been growing really good. All these stem plants have been growing really good. You can see some of that red color, which is what I'm expecting in the 10 gallon. There's one little clipping that I missed that's floating around. But I kind of moved around some of the stuff. And also, if you have any suggestions for where I should move plants to and what you think about the plant placement, definitely let me know. But this one, I'm definitely going to be trying to add maybe some shrimp and ottos in here. And I'm thinking about putting guppies in here. So I have some guppies in another 10 gallon over here that I'll be getting to. I might transfer those in, or I might just start I'll probably put those in with whatever guppies I would get, but I might just go get some guppies to put in here. And just kind of have like just a general fancy guppy tank, not any one specific strain, but that's just kind of going for right now. I'm also planning on kind of trying to beef up the microfauna population. There's copepods in here. There's some limpets, and I want to get, you know, some black worms in substrate, some more other types of worms. I have some other worms in this other 10 gallon over here. But I really am trying to experiment with kind of like getting a nice, healthy, diverse microfauna population in every one of the tanks, not just this one. But that's kind of where that one's at right now. Down here, this is the tank where I had the 3 white clouds. You can see there's a little bit less algae, but there's still a decent amount. This one hasn't gotten the, you know, beautification treatment yet, which the driftwood placement is definitely all over the place, because I was kind of just having stuff float in there to let it get waterlogged, and then it just sank wherever it sank. So this one's gonna need like a completely new rescape. But also I've been seeing some breeding action from these gold white clouds, and I kind of want to wait and see if I'm gonna get any eggs first. So I'm gonna give that like 2 weeks before I really try and start messing with it. If I start seeing fry pop up, then I'll probably still continue to leave it and just let it kind of do its thing. let those grow up a little bit. And then once they get to a more like juvenile stage, I haven't necessarily seen it myself, but I have heard it from other YouTubers and whatnot that like the juvenile, like the adults won't prey on the fry, but the juveniles will. So once they kind of get to more of that juvenile stage, then I'll probably go ahead and try and rescape everything and get it to a more a better looking tank, you know. But there's also one thing that I kind of want to tell you guys about, and that's an idea I have, which I'm pretty dead set on it. But this guy right here, if you can see, he's got a little bit of red on his body. Come on. Turn around. There you go. See that little bit of red? And it looks like it's a skin pigment. And I've looked it up trying to find like red white clouds. And the only ones that I can see are kind of like a metallic red that kind of look like they started with a just a regular white cloud strain. And, you know, people were working on that to, he's over there. He's too far away. But people were working on that to try and get a red color. But this almost looks more like an opaque red. And so I'm kind of wanting to try and get that coloration, like kind of more like the coloration of the fins, to be the whole thing. I've also thought about maybe even like a spotted red, but that all kind of just depends on the genetics. And if I'm even able to kind of get red at all. But that's definitely like a multi-year long project if I do end up getting into that, which that all depends on the fry that I'm able to get. But I think it'd be really pretty if I could get a red strain of white clouds out there. So that's one another project that I'm kind of looking at. Now over here, you got this 5 gallon. This 5 gallon hasn't really changed much. I mean, maybe there's more algae, but I still don't really know what I'm gonna do with that 5 gallon. That 5 gallon's kind of just sitting there for now. I mean, it's also, you know, got copepods and worms in it, but like just detritus worms. But this is just kind of sitting on the back burner for now. And this one, I bought some guppies, and the guppies, as per usual, did not make it more than like a week. Every time that I seem to get guppies, they seem to die off. And this tank I also just cleaned not too long ago. But some of the guppies that I had gotten were pregnant, and they managed to give birth before they died, which I was sad to see them die. But like I said, like pretty much every time I get guppies, they seem to die on me, which I'm wondering if that might be partially water parameters. But I do still have 5 guppies, so at least the guppies that were born have been able to survive. So I'm wondering if that's just where they're acclimated to my water, or if it's just, you know, the guppies are so, like, that's one thing that I've heard is how like weak guppies are now. I'm kind of thinking it might be more related to that, but there are 5 guppy fry in here. I'm gonna try and get some more. Probably gonna put the other guppies that I get into the 40 breeder though, with the plants and the shells. That's for the shell dwellers. But my goal is to kind of start like breeding the shrimp and the white clouds, and then also some guppies, and then saving, like getting store credit, like selling them to the fish store, I guess, and getting store credit in order to be able to then eventually get multis, because those are like $30 a piece, and if I get like 6 in order to try and get at least a couple males and females, that's like $200 right there. So you know, I do have a job. I could eventually get to that point, but I kind of need to get lights for some tanks and get lids for some tanks and timers for the lights. So like there's other hard goods that I can't necessarily get at the fish store. I mean, there are, like, I could get some stuff at like some lights and stuff at the fish store, but there's other things that I'd like to get that I can't get at the fish store, that I'd prefer to use the stuff that I get from my, you know, day job. So I'd rather build up money. You can also see these autos that are kind of swimming around. I got 3 autos in here too. And that's another breeding project that I wouldn't mind tackling someday in the future. Maybe after I'm able to breed the white clouds, I wouldn't mind trying to see if I have males and females of the autos. and trying to get those breeding. And then I can populate the other tanks with the autos, and then maybe also sell those too back to the fish store. But in here, I haven't really done much. I mean, I did just clear out, there's a whole bunch of algae all over this moss and Sylvester, so I got most of it off without like actually ripping out the moss and Sylvester. So now I'm just kind of waiting. I'm gonna get, once I get my shrimp population up, this is probably the first tank that I'm gonna add them to try and help the moss and Sylvester not be as covered in algae. I know they're not great at eating hair algae, but they could at least maybe put a dent or at least get all the mulm off there to where it wouldn't be, you know, providing a good habitat for algae. Same thing with this, you know, I kind of also took out all the Vallisneria over from this side, and there was some of, I forget what this stem plant is called, but it was starting to go over here. And so I kept that to that side and the Vallisneria to this side. So just trying in general to, you know, keep things in their place and make it look somewhat better and more organized. But yeah, so kind of just thinking about keeping this a guppy tank for now and the autos, and then like I said, eventually adding shrimp once those breed. But you know, slowly you can see, you know, like 4 tanks I guess are definitely looking better. Not great, but better. And then this tank is kind of, I'm just kind of letting the microfauna breed in here. There's plenty, they're probably way too small for me to actually show on camera, but this one I also got limpets in and ram's horns and Malaysian trumpet snails and also pond snails. But there's also like 3 different types of worms. I haven't noticed detritus worms. The only ones that I've noticed is that first 10 gallon has detritus worms. But then I collected this from a local river. I collected this one, and then also that Gatorade bottle has some. And I've noticed the detritus worms in there, but I'm waiting to see, you know, if there's any Hydra or Planaria. I just collected that like yesterday or 2 days ago. So I'm probably gonna let those sit for, you know, 2 weeks to a month to kind of see what's in there before I start adding them to this tank. But this tank, I'm kind of wanting to redo the substrate, as well as put plenty of leaf litter and sticks and stuff in there, in order to be able to kind of get like a nice microfauna tank where it's like purely just, you know, maybe throw in some substrate and plants from all the other tanks into this tank to get a nice variety, because I noticed that there are some like differences in what each ecosystem kind of has in terms of their microfauna populations. So, and I know microfauna isn't technically the correct usage of that word, but that's the kind of correct usage in terms of the aquarium hobby. That tank, I'm honestly surprised how well the crypts are doing in there, because this has no light whatsoever. It gets some sunlight from that window right there, and then it also gets the ambient light from this. I keep this light on for 24 hours straight. But it also has copepods in it and stuff. But this tank, I'm still kind of not sure what to do. I'm probably going to eventually end up draining it, moving all the plants to different tanks. And because I also, another project of mine that I still have to do, as you can see, like this tank, this 10 gallon, I have like a piece of white styrofoam on the back. And this 5 gallon, plus that 10 gallon over there at the top. Although that one I'm probably gonna leave because I've got too much going on with it. But all of these I eventually want to completely empty and then paint the back sides of them black. Kind of wish I'd done it before I'd ever set them up, but like definitely this one I'll be tearing down before I actually end up like redoing the substrate and putting all that stuff in there. So that way I'm not gonna be like setting up this microfauna tank and then having no background. Same with that one. Once I figure out what I'm doing with it, I'm gonna tear it down and paint it, the back of it first before I actually set it up. And that one. But this one, I don't know, it's a little bit iffy because I kind of like the base structure of it. So I might just end up putting some type of background, or I might use a weenie roller on that. Usually what I use is the Plastidip, and I'll like spray the back of it. You know, put some paper on the side so I'm not getting overspray on the sides of the tank. But this one I might just honestly roll it on with a weenie roller. And then I know I had mentioned something about a 55 gallon going right here, besides this 10 gallon. That tank has cracks in the top and bottom trim. So I need to find a way to get replacement trim for that. And if not, then I might just not use that tank. Plus, I also kind of need to build a stand for it. So I'm still debating on what to do with that tank, if I'm actually going to go through the process of trying to find the, sorry, I'll try and keep this centered for you guys, but go through the process of trying to find that or not. And then the other two 40 breeders that I have are still kind of just sitting there doing nothing. I mean, I put the driftwood that was in the top one, I put that in the bottom one so that way it could get waterlogged so I can use it for scaping. But besides that, there's not much going on. But yeah, that's pretty much everything that's going on from Fisherman for right now. I'll definitely come back and update you guys probably in another month or two about what's kind of going on, or whenever I get fry, you know, out. Whenever there's something interesting or I've actually like done some type of work in here, that's when I'll come back and update you guys. But that's all for today. I hope you guys have a great day, and yeah, subscribe and like if you guys enjoyed this. Thank you.